Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are definitely shaking things up a bit.
Yeah, we've got a really interesting mix today.
We do. We have a stack of three fascinating stories that they seem totally unrelated at first glance. We've got marine biology, ancient history, and some pretty heavy-hitting demographics.
Right. But before we jump right into the analysis part, we are actually going to do something a little special today.
Exactly. We get a lot of requests from you, our listeners, especially those of you who use this deep dive to sharpen your English comprehension.
Yeah, people have been asking to just hear the source material clearly first before we, start tearing it apart and analyzing every little detail.
So today we are adopting a listen first, analyze second format. I'm going to act as the narrator for a few minutes.
Which you're very good at, by the way.
Well, thank you. I will read the three short articles from our research packet verbatim. That means word for word, exactly as they appear in the source text.
And this is your chance to really hear the rhythm, the vocabulary, and just the general flow of the text without us interrupting with our own thoughts.
Right. And then once the reading is completely done, we will circle back and break down the key concepts, the difficult vocabulary, and the surprising context behind these headlines.
Sounds perfect. Let's get into it.
All right. Grab your headphones and settle in. Here is the full reading of today's cool news. Story number 1. Drones catch whale breath. Scientists have come up with a clever new way of finding out if whales are healthy, catching samples of their breath with drones.
Wow.
The team recently collected breath samples from near the blowholes of 85 North Atlantic right whales, a critically endangered species with fewer than 400 individuals left in the wild.
That's so few.
Then, back at the lab, they used genetic methods to study them. Amazingly, the team were able to identify the types of bacteria in each whale's breath and discovered that these microbes were directly related to their health.
Fascinating.
These insights will help scientists better monitor and protect the whales in future. Yay! Previously, experts had to collect samples by boat, which stressed out the rare whales.
Right.
Drones are safer, quieter, and cause less disturbance, which is great news. Fantastic.
Done.
Moving on to story number 2. Record-breaking dino prints. Paleontologists have counted over 18,000 fossilized dinosaur tracks at Toro National Park in Bolivia, South America, setting a new world record for the most ever found in one place.
Incredible.
The tracks were discovered in Carreras Pampa, a high, rugged area that was once a coastline where dinosaurs walked, ran, and swam. Most were made by theropods, three-toed dinos that lived at the end of the Cretaceous period, over 66 million years ago. Some footprints measured less than 10 centimeters, while others were the size of dinner plates.
Huge.
The 30-centimeter tracks may have been left by big predators like Allosaurus. Plus, the team found bird footprints in over 300 and 370 swim tracks, marks made by creatures treading on the seafloor.
Very cool.
And finally, story number 3. 3 fast facts, populations. The United Nations recently announced that Jakarta has the largest population of any city, overtaking Japan's Tokyo. Let's find out more.
Okay.
Fact 1. The capital city of Indonesia, Jakarta, is home to 42 million people. That's about the same as the total number of people who live in Canada. Found on the island of Java, it's a hot, noisy city known for its tasty street food.
Sounds amazing.
Fact 2. Australia's most populated city is Sydney, with 5.5 million residents, just slightly more than New Zealand's total of 5.3 million. Australia's total population is expected to reach 28 million this year.
Right.
Fact 3. Earth's most populated country is India. More than 1.46 billion people live there. On the other hand, only about 800 people live in the Vatican, a city-state in Europe. At 0.4 kilometers squared, it's the world's smallest and least populated country.
Wow.
What is a population? A population is the total number of people living in a specific area. This could be a big place, like a city or a country, or somewhere smaller, like your school.
And that's the end of the reading.
Yep. There we have it. The raw data, exactly as written.
Excellent reading. Just hearing those stories read back to back, like that really highlights the massive scope of what we are covering today.
It really does.
I mean, we just went from microscopic bacteria in a whale's lungs all the way to the populations of entire nations.
It is a lot to process. So let's go back to the start and really unpack the English vocabulary and the actual science here. Let's look at that first story about the North Atlantic right whales.
Yeah, the headline itself, drones catch whale breath. It sounds like pure science fiction.
Totally does.
But the core of this story is actually very grounded in conservation. The text uses a really specific phrase, critically endangered.
Right, and for those of you learning English, the word critically here is acting as an intensifier. So it's not just endangered, it is at an absolute crisis point.
Precisely. It's the highest risk category before extinction in the wild. And the text gives us the hard number to back that up. Fewer than 400 individuals left in the wild.
400?
Just to put that in perspective, you could easily fit the entire remaining population of this entire species into a medium-sized movie theater.
Oh, wow. That is a truly terrifying visual.
It is.
And because that number is so incredibly low, the text mentions a significant problem with the old way they were doing the science.
Right. It says previously experts used boats. And the problem with a boat is that it is loud, it's large, and it's highly intrusive.
The text actually says this stressed out the rare whales.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In science, this is what we call the observer effect. By just trying to watch or study the animal, you are actually changing its behavior or even hurting it in the process.
So the drone completely solves that disturbance issue. It just hovers quietly above them.
Safely out of the way.
But I want to talk about what they are actually collecting. Because the text says breath samples, but then it gets way more specific. It mentions microbes and bacteria.
Yeah, this gets into the science of the microbiome.
Right.
So just like humans have gut bacteria that tell doctors a lot about our digestion and overall health, whales have a respiratory microbiome.
So when a whale exhales...
The blow isn't just air. It's this dense mist of mucus and various biological materials from deep inside their lungs.
And the text mentions using genetic methods to study this mist.
Which likely refers to DNA sequencing. By analyzing the genetic material in that blow, they aren't just seeing if the whale has a cold.
What else can they see?
They can actually identify specific markers of stress, malnutrition, or deep-seated disease. It's essentially a full medical checkup, completely performed remotely.
Fantastic, as the article put it.
I really appreciate that pun. But for you listening, the key takeaway here is the shift in the vocabulary.
From boat and stress to drone and safer.
Exactly. It's a modern technological solution to a very sensitive biological problem.
All right, let's move from the middle of the ocean to the tops of the mountains. Story number 2, the record-breaking dino prints.
This one is fascinating. It takes us to Bolivia. And the vocabulary used here paints a very specific picture of the current landscape.
Yeah, the text describes Carreras Pampa as a high, rugged area.
Rugged is a great word. It implies the terrain is rough, uneven, rocky, may be very difficult to hike through.
But then the text throws a massive curveball. It says this rugged mountain area was once a coastline.
And this is where you really have to understand the geological context to make sense of it. The text mentions the Cretaceous period, which was over 66 million years ago.
A very long time.
Right. And back then, the specific area of Bolivia was right at sea level. It was a beach. But over millions of years, plate tectonics.
The movement of the Earth's crust.
Exactly. The crust pushed this land up violently to form the Andes Mountains.
So we're literally looking at a prehistoric beach that has been lifted thousands of feet into the sky.
It's mind-blowing. And the scale of what they found on this lifted beach is just massive, over 18,000 fossilized tracks.
And the text emphasizes the word fossilized. For our language learners, that means the soft mud from that ancient beach turned into hard stone over time, perfectly preserving the shape of the footprint.
And it wasn't just one type of dinosaur either. The text mentions theropods.
Those are the meat eaters, right?
Yes, the three-toed dinosaurs. It specifically names the Allosaurus.
Which is a name that should definitely send a shiver down your spine if you're a small creature.
Oh, absolutely. The apex predator of its time.
The text also notes some tracks were the size of dinner plates, about 30 centimeters, while others were less than 10 centimeters.
And that size variance is scientifically crucial.
Why is that?
Because it tells us this wasn't just a brief migration of adults passing through. It was a mixed population of adults and juveniles living there.
Ah, I see.
And the text adds another brilliant layer, bird footprints.
So it wasn't just big, scary reptile.
No, it shows us a complete, vibrant ecosystem. Dinosaurs and early birds just coexisting on the same coastline.
But the detail that I think is by far the most interesting, and the text explicitly marks it as cool with an exclamation point, is the swim tracks.
Oh, yes. Over 370 swim tracks.
I have to ask, how does a scientist know the difference between a walk and a swim just by looking at a dent in a rock?
It's a great question. The text actually gives us a massive clue here. It says marks made by creatures treading on the seafloor.
Treading!
Right. Imagine you are in a swimming pool. When you walk from the shallow end to the deep end, eventually your body starts to naturally float. Right?
Yeah, you lose your footing.
But your toes might still just barely scrape the bottom of the pool. You aren't putting your full heavy weight down anymore.
So these fossilized tracks aren't deep, flat footprints at all. They are scrapes.
Exactly. They are literal claw marks dragging through the mud as the animal buoys up and paddles deeper into the water.
That is amazing.
It gives us such a dynamic image of these creatures. They weren't just stomping around heavily on the dry land. They were actively entering the water, swimming, maybe hunting sharks or ancient fish.
It brings their actual behavior to life rather than just treating them like statues in a museum.
It really does.
Okay, let's jump to the third and final story. We've done marine biology, we've done paleontology, and now it's time for demographics. 3 fast facts about populations.
This story is fundamentally all about comparisons. For anyone studying English, notice how it uses comparative adjectives so heavily. Words like largest, smallest, most populated.
Let's look at fact 1. Jakarta versus Tokyo. The text says Jakarta has overtaken Tokyo. That's a really great verb for English learners. It means to catch up from behind and then pass someone or something.
And the raw number here is staggering. 42 million people.
Just in the city.
Just the city.
Huh.
The text explicitly compares this to a whole country. It says that's about the same as the total number of people who live in Canada.
This is a wild lesson in population density. Canada is massive. It's literally the second biggest country in the world geographically.
It's huge amounts of land.
And Jakarta is just a single city located on the island of Java.
The text describes Jakarta as hot, noisy, and known for street food. It paints a picture of intense, vibrant, crowded activity.
Yeah.
If you imagine putting the entire population of Canada into one single city, you can start to imagine how densely packed that specific area becomes.
Moving to fact 2, we have the comparison between Australia and New Zealand.
This comparison is brilliant because it highlights the sheer dominance of the city over the country. Sydney alone has 5.5 million residents.
Okay.
New Zealand, the entire neighboring nation, has 5.3 million.
So one single city in Australia holds more people than the entire country next door.
Just slightly more, as the text carefully notes. It really shows how intensely urbanized Australia is as a nation.
The text also notes the total Australian population is expected to reach 28 million this year. So Sydney accounts for a really huge chunk of that total.
A massive percentage, yes.
And finally, fact 3 takes us to the absolute extremes of human civilization. The biggest country versus the smallest country.
India, with a staggering 1.46 billion people. And then you have the Vatican with just 800.
The text calls the Vatican a city-state. For our listeners, what does that mean exactly in a geopolitical sense?
A city-state is exactly what it sounds like. It's a city that functions completely as an independent country. It has its own government, its own laws, its own borders, but it occupies a very, very small territory. The text points out it is only 0.4 kilometers squared.
That is incredibly small. You could walk across that in minutes.
Exactly. It's the world's smallest and least populated country. It's essentially just a walled enclave sitting right inside the city of Rome.
And comparing that tiny space to India, which is holding 1.46 billion people, it really stretches the definition of what we call a country.
It does. And
Yeah.
actually, the text ends with a definition that I think ties this whole episode together. It says, a population is the total number of people living in a specific area.
And that definition really does tie all 3 of our stories together perfectly today.
It really does.
How so, in your mind?
Well, think about it like this. In the very first story, our specific area is the vast North Atlantic Ocean, and the population there is fewer than 400 whales.
Right. A population in a severe crisis.
Exactly. Then in the second story, the specific area is that ancient, rugged coastline in Bolivia, and the population there left behind 18,000 dinosaur tracks.
So that was a booming, dominant population.
Yes. And in the third story, the specific area is Jakarta, with a current population of 42 million humans.
It's all about scale and perspective.
Precisely. We use the exact same word, population, to describe 400 struggling whales and 1.46 billion humans in India.
Yeah.
It reminds us that population isn't just a random number. It's a measure of evolutionary success, of global dominance, and sometimes of extreme fragility.
That's a really great point. Those 400 whales are struggling to survive in a modern world entirely dominated by over 8 billion humans.
And those 18,000 dinosaur tracks remind us that dominance never lasts forever.
Right.
Those theropods were the Jakarta of their day. They were absolutely everywhere. And now they were just fossilized stone.
So if we look back at the key vocabulary we've covered today for our learners, critically endangered, genetic methods, fossilized, rugged, and population.
These are all highly useful words that help us describe the physical state of the world around us.
Absolutely. Whether you are talking about biology, natural history, or modern geography, you need these specific terms to describe how many things are out there, where they are living, and what condition they are currently in.
I also really like the word treading from the dinosaur story.
Oh, yeah, treading on the seafloor. It's a very specific, evocative verb.
It is. It usually implies walking very carefully or actively keeping yourself afloat in deep water, like treading water.
It adds so much nuance compared to just saying walking.
And overtaking from the Jakarta story as well. It suggests forward movement, almost like a race. These mega cities are racing each other to grow.
And meanwhile, the whales are racing against extinction.
Heavy stuff, but incredibly important to think about.
It is. And it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought for you listening at home.
It's that.
Well, we are using advanced drones to carefully check the health of just 400 whales, while at the exact same time we have cities practically bursting with 42 million humans. As our human population records just keep breaking year after year, like we saw with Jakarta, how might our responsibility to those critically endangered species have to change in the future?
That is a fascinating question to ponder. As we take up more space, we have to actively make space for them.
Exactly. Before we wrap up completely, I want to leave our listeners with a little piece of visual homework.
Oh, good idea.
The text mentioned those swim tracks in Bolivia. I highly recommend you go online and search for dinosaur swim tracks.
You really should. It helps so much to see it. It literally looks like massive scratch marks dragged through the rock. It perfectly connects that new vocabulary word, treading, to a real physical image.
And for those of you actively practicing your spoken English, try reading the 3 fast facts section out loud to yourself.
Yes, pay close attention to how the large numbers are read, saying 1.46 billion or 0.4 kilometers squared.
This can be really tricky to get your tongue around at natural speed.
Getting comfortable with saying those large numbers and decimals smoothly is a massive part of spoken fluency.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive for today. We hope this new format, doing the raw input first and then the detailed analysis, helped you get a much better grip on both the English and the science.
It was a really fun experiment. We went all the way from the breath of a whale to the bustling streets of Jakarta.
Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.